Moving on here to the positional breakdown for the draft, we're going to look at players at each position, both college and high school players. They're going to look like they're going to have an impact here in the draft. These are actually guys who are generally considered top 10 or 15 talent at their position. No deep sleepers here for these guys. So we're going to look at those guys. Hopefully I don't expose anybody's favorite player that they're looking to get maybe a little steal on. So here we go and kick off with the catchers from the college rank, including, and we had Susik earlier, who's not available, but two other guys who are considered probably the top college catchers in this year's draft are Peter O'Brien, a guy from Bethune-Cookman, good athlete behind the plate, and then also hits the ball pretty well. Not a ton of power. I think maybe like a Tony Sanchez comp. It's pretty accurate for him. Athletic catcher, good defense. Hit a little bit of power. Good all-around guy. And then another player named James McCann from Arkansas. Got a better bat, a little more power, so he can make an impact. He's looking like he's been rising the last couple of weeks, actually, in a lot of mock drafts. So he could possibly go in like the supplemental round and be a pretty good upside bat behind the plate for somebody. Looking at the guys in the high school ranks in terms of catchers, we got Blake Swihart, who's probably going to go late first, early supplemental round, but he's actually told teams that he wants to go to Texas and play college ball, so we'll see if somebody can throw enough money his way to buy him out of that. I don't think it's firm that he's not going to sign, but looks like one of the more difficult signs in the drafts. Another high school catcher who's pretty much locked on signing, I think, is Austin Hedges. Little better defensive player than Swihart, a little less bat. Whenever I saw a video, I didn't like his swing very much, but could turn out to be a good player with enough coaching and development time. Because catchers are so hard to come by in terms of ones that will actually make it to the major leagues. He could definitely be somebody to take an investment and hope he turns out for the best in terms of his bat. Looking at first baseman, they're a lot harder to come by just because there's so few of them in terms of players who are already at first base, because so many players transfer there after getting to the pros, because guys who are already at first base when they get to the pros just don't have anywhere to go. So it's kind of almost a curse to already be a first baseman going into the draft, but we got a few in the college ranks who look like they're going to be pretty good players. Aaron Westlake, a guy from Vanderbilt, a pretty good hitter all around, a good bat, not a ton of power per se from a first baseman, but a very good bat, almost like a Logan Morrison type. And then a guy named C.J. Cron, who's probably one of the best hitting players in the whole draft, no matter position. Probably a 300 hitter, 30-plus home run upside in terms of where he could go. He does have a shoulder injury, which could put some teams off. Has some scouts questioning his future ability, but the bat looks really good at this point. In the high school ranks, there's not a ton of first basemen who are getting looks in the first round, but one of them is Larry Green, guy who's split time between first base and the outfield in high school, but it looks like he's going to be a first baseman going forward in the pros. Scouts really like his swing, and he's got a ton of power coming to the plate, so he could be another guy who kind of fits in that Ryan Howard, Prince Fielder type mold, but a guy who's probably going to take a little while to get going, especially in terms of his contact ability. That's one thing scouts really have some questions on him. Moving on to second baseman, in the college ranks, is actually a fairly decent year in terms of college second baseman coming out. One guy from Hawaii is Colton Wong, very good hitter. Scouts see a future 300, 320 hitter. Decent power from second base, and then also decent speed, more along the lines of like a 15-15 guy at his peak. But I mean, that's pretty good value from a second baseman. There aren't many producing at that level right now, so could be a good value for somebody there in the late first round. So looking at maybe the middle of our second round or so. Another guy who actually has played shortstop in college, but I've seen him play more than enough times to know that he'll never play a game in the pros at shortstop, at least not at the major league level, is Brad Miller. Can hit a ton out of the ball, but cannot field to save his life, so he's going to be a second baseman at best going forward. That's a really good bat. May go over to third base. I don't know. Definitely not a shortstop though. But a good bat. He's hitting like 35 on the season. He was named ACC Player of the Year. Got decent power, good speed, so a good hitter. Just needs to find a position in the pros. And then for the high school ranks, another position that you don't see a lot of high schoolers playing just because a lot of them move over from shortstop. But one high schooler playing second base already is Josh Tobias, a kid from North Carolina who's compares pretty well to Delano DeShields from last year, if y'all remember him. So a decent player there, who should get some looks around the supplemental round of the draft in real life. So probably going to be a third rounder here, maybe fourth or fifth if he falls, just depending on a few things. I've heard some questions on his signability and off-field stuff, but just depending on where he goes, he could be a pretty good value for a team here in the ADBL. Moving over to third base ranks, we got a few really good hitters in the college, and then a few upside guys in high school who could make an impact down the road. The couple in college, actually Anthony Rendon projected to go in the top 5 right now. Some questions over his shoulder, but those injury reports will probably be coming out in the next week or so. Well, actually, probably over the weekend they'll come out. So teams will be able to see fully how hurt that shoulder is and whether he'll be able to come back and actually play third base in the pros. But the bat's awesome. It's one of the best bats in the draft, if not the best. So he'll be able to bank on that and be able to play wherever he needs to play, whether it's DH, first base, or if he can stay at third base. That won't be a problem either. And then a guy who's rose pretty good here in the last probably half of the spring is Corey Spangenberg. He's a junior college player from out in California, I think, and he's been rumored a lot to the San Diego Padres around 10, which I think would be a little bit of a reach, but he's a pretty good bat, compares pretty favorably to Wong, that 15-15 type guy in the pros. Got some good speed and also good overall player. And then looking at the high school ranks at third base, we got a couple guys who very contrasting players, I think. Travis Harrison, a guy who's got elite power, hit a home run over 500 feet in a home run derby earlier this year, in one of the big power showcases. I forget which one it was, but elite power. If he can hit as a pro, he'll be a good player. And then a guy who's also got some MLB bloodlines is Dante Bichette. His dad played in the pros. I don't remember when exactly, but his dad was a pro. Got those good bloodlines, and then pretty good athlete. Contrary to Harrison, who's not necessarily a great athlete, but Bichette could play the outfield if he needs to move off of third base, and he's got the bat, pretty good bat, to go along with that athleticism. Looking at shortstop in the college ranks, got a couple guys, one from the ACC and one from the SEC. Levi Michael from North Carolina, getting looks around anywhere between like pick 9 and pick 30. He'll be gone in the first round, just because he's a legitimate shortstop with a good bat and good wheels. So he'll be a player who could probably make an impact in the majors within 2 years of being signed. Then a guy from Missouri State or Mississippi State, I think, B.A. Vermouth. He's seen his stock fall throughout the year, but up until last year had been seen as a first-round guy. A good bat, good athleticism, good range at shortstop. A glove has come into question a little more this year, but the range and athleticism is there for him to play shortstop in the pros if a team wants to take him there. We're going to look at a few more high school shortstops, just because, like I was saying, those guys moved to the outfield, they moved to second base. But there's a few here that definitely look like they could stay in the outfield as pros. Francisco Lindor, who's going to be a top 10 pick in pretty much in all likelihood. A lot like Manny Machado from last year, not as much power, maybe a little more speed. Not quite as good of a hitter, but a good all-around player. Probably 4.5 tools if scouts were going to grade him that way. And then another guy who's from Georgia, Julius Gaines, who's seen as probably one of the best all-around shortstops defensively in this year's draft. Got a pretty good bat, a lot of speed, maybe like a D. Gordon type, but he'll be getting looks around the late first round, supplemental round. So that's where he's probably going to go. And then a guy from Texas named Trevor Story, who shot up draft boards here and is looking like maybe a late first round draft pick. Another guy who's a great shortstop. His bat's coming around, and teams who think that bat will keep coming around will definitely be able to take a shot at him and be rewarded with a good shortstop if he works out. The last one we're going to look at is a guy who's also played a little bit at outfield, but teams think that he could stick at shortstop, is Johnny Earman. And he's kind of that same mold, got a little better batting gains and story, not quite as refined as a shortstop. So he's got probably a higher likelihood of falling off the position. Moving to our outfielders, in the college ranks we got George Springer, who's a five-tool talent from Connecticut, Mickey Matuk from LSU, another five-tool guy, and Brian Goodwin, another five-tool guy. What separates those three? Springer's got a little more power. Matuk's looks like he's going to be like a 20-20 guy in the pro, just about a lock on that. He's probably going to go between 12 and 16 or so, and that's where I've seen him mocked at pretty much since last year. So his stock's held pretty consistent. And Goodwin's got more speed than both of them, a little less power, but he's looking like maybe a 15-30 guy. So I mean, all of them have that five-tool ability and could be major league players before too long. All of them are pretty refined in their skill set, so it probably won't take much time for them to move up the ranks. As for our high schoolers, though, there's some guys who are going to need a little bit more time to get ready for the pros. The first one's Josh Bell. He actually told the Major League Scouting Bureau the other day that he didn't want to sign. He wanted to go to Texas and play. Sent them a letter and all. So he went to a pretty good deal to get that out there. But if a team throws enough money in his face, he'll probably sign. No telling where he's going to go now with those demands, though, so we'll see where he falls. But it could definitely be a good value if he ends up signing. A guy who's gotten comps to Jacoby Ellsbury and then Brett Gardner as well is a guy named Charles Tilson. Very fast player, not a ton of power, but gets down the line in the 3-second mark down to first base. So, I mean, tons of speed there. If he hits, that's going to be a bonus, but he plays really good outfield defense, so the team's going to get a pretty good value out of him. Deshaun Dunstan's another guy who I think his dad played in the pros. He's going to be a mid supplemental round draft pick more than likely. But he's got good athleticism and a good all-around package. And then Bubba Starling, probably the top high school player in the draft. Him and Dylan Bundy, who we'll get to later, are the two high school players that are getting the most looks here in the draft. So good five-tool talent there. As for pitchers, we're going to look at a few righties, few lefties. For the righties in college, we got Anthony Mayo from down at Coastal Carolina. Looks like he's going to be a number 2 type pitcher. Good velocity, good breaking stuff. Not going to take too long in the minors, I don't think, to be ready for pro ball. So somebody's going to get a fast mover there and a good talent as well. And then looking at some of the bigger names that are going to go in the first probably 10 picks. One guy's named Sonny Gray from Vanderbilt, program that's produced a lot of pitching stars, and he's gotten fairly good comps in terms of stuff to David Price. Not the same physical package, but in terms of stuff, just a really good player there. And then for the high schoolers, like I was saying, Dylan Bundy, probably the top high school player. One of the top 2 high school players, definitely the top high school pitcher. And then a guy who's going to fall probably towards the end of the first round, early supplemental round. It's a guy named Robert Stevenson from California. Probably the first of the second-tier guys, along with a guy named Tyler Beatty. But some definite talent there, probably number 2, number 3s in the pro, but guys who could see their stuff tick up in the pros and move to that top tier as well, who could come at a little more of a bargain. In terms of our left-handers, in the college ranks, the top college lefty, Danny Hilton, seen him pitch this year. He's got really good stuff, good movement on his stuff, and probably won't take very long in the minors. And then another guy named Jeb Browley from Georgia Tech, who's seen as a number 2, maybe a number 1 in the pros, but definitely kind of like Deck McGuire last year from Georgia Tech, who's going to move very quickly and be ready probably maybe even at the beginning of next year to be a pro. Then the top 2 high school lefties, Henry Owens and Daniel Norris, both of them seen as number 1, number 2 upside type guys. Both of them can go in the first round. Good talents for anybody to add onto their system. That's the draft preview special. I was trying to squeeze all that in. But good luck drafting next week to everybody. It's going to be a fun time, and hopefully we can get done pretty quickly and get those new talents into our systems.